So last night was the final Democratic debate between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders. It took place in Brooklyn, and by all accounts, Bernie Sanders won this debate. So I'm going to show you 3 clips where Hillary Clinton fumbled around and avoided answering really important questions. So first up, we're going to talk about I'm going to show you a clip where she discussed her position on moving to a $15 minimum wage.
When this campaign began, I said that we got to end the starvation minimum wage of $7.25, raise it to 15. Secretary Clinton said, let's raise it to 12. There's a difference. And by the way, what has happened is history has outpaced Secretary Clinton, because all over this country, people are standing up and they're saying 12 is not good enough. We need $15 an hour.
All right. I have said from the very beginning that I supported the fight for 15. I supported those on the front lines of the fight for. It happens to be true. We will set a national level of 12 and then urge any place that can go above it to go above it. Going from $7.25 to 12 is a huge difference.
Well, I think the secretary has confused a lot of people. I don't know how you're there for the fight for 15 when you say you want a $12 an hour national minimum wage.
So the boost she got there in her first answer says it all. Her whole campaign, she's been fighting, or she's had the position of $12 an hour for a minimum wage, whereas Bernie's had $15 an hour. And now, while she's in New York, since recently New York fought to make $15 an hour the minimum wage there, she's now moved this position pretending that she's always been for $15 an hour, when this is the first time she's really pretending to take this position. And people in the crowd reacted because they know she's lying. And even Bernie Sanders points out there what everyone was thinking. People are confused. Like, what are you talking about? You said in one answer you want $15 an hour, and then the next answer, no, you want to start 12 and then go to 15. Nobody's saying go to $15 an hour tomorrow. Bernie Sanders' plan is also incremental. It also happens over a few years. But you're taking this weird position where it's like, no, 12, but then 15 if you want to go to 15. It's disingenuous. She is not being honest, and this is only the beginning. So I have 2 more clips to get to that these are going to get progressively worse as we go on. So this next one is the second worst clip, her worst performance, second worst performance during this debate, and that's on the question about Israel's attacks against the Palestinian people.
Do you agree with Senator Sanders that Israel overreacts to Palestinian attacks, and that in order for there to be peace between Israel and the Palestinians, Israel must, quote, end its disproportionate responses?
I negotiated the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas in November of 2012. And they called and told me I was in Cambodia, which would give the Palestinians the rights, and just let me finish, the rights and the autonomy.
You evaded the question. The question is not does Israel have a right to respond, not does Israel have a right to go after terrorists and destroy terrorism. That's not the debate. Was their response disproportionate? I believe that it was. You have not answered that.
Well, I will certainly be willing to answer it. I think I did answer it by saying that, of course, there have to be precautions taken, but
I read Secretary Clinton's speech before AIPAC. I heard virtually no discussion at all about the needs of the Palestinian people. Almost none in that speech.
So in that clip, Hillary Clinton really just showcased that she is a neocon, a conservative when it comes to the issue of Israel-Palestine. So she couldn't even bring herself so much to say that the attacks from Israel on the Palestinian people were disproportionate to the attacks that they received from the Palestinian people. So in those attacks, over 1,000 people died, thousands more injured, civilians, and she couldn't even admit that Israel did any wrongdoing. Her position is so conservative. It amazes me that this is not talked about more often. This is not something a liberal, a progressive would have as a position on Israel-Palestine. She's very off base here. And again, she avoided answering the question because she doesn't want to be honest in front of these people, because These are liberals. These are Democratic voters. And if they actually heard what she feels on this issue, then they wouldn't like it because she has a conservative position. So, and that's just the second worst. So let's get to the worst one here. This is her worst, in my opinion, her worst performance to a question, or I should say, the way she avoided this question. Let's just get to it. So this is about her speeches to Wall Street, the transcripts of those speeches.
Senator Sanders keeps bringing up the speeches that you gave to Goldman Sachs. So I'd like to ask you, you've said that you don't want to release the transcripts until everybody does it. But if there is nothing in those speeches that you think would change voters' minds, why not just release the transcripts and put this whole issue to bed?
You know, there isn't an issue. When I was in public service, serving as the senator from New York, I did stand up to the banks.
Secretary Clinton, the question was about the transcripts of the speeches to Goldman Sachs. Why not release them?
I have said, look, there are certain expectations when you run for president. This is a new one, and I've said if everybody agrees to do it, because there are speeches for money on the other side, I know that.
Just to put a button on this, you're running now for the Democratic nomination.
Right.
And it is your Democratic opponent and many Democratic voters who want to see those transcripts. It's not about the Republicans at this point.
I am going to release all of the transcripts of the speeches that I gave on Wall Street behind closed doors. Not for $225,000, not for $2,000, not for 2 cents. There were no speeches.
So first, I have to give it to Dana Bash of CNN. She pressed Clinton hard on this question, came back at her 2 more times after the initial question about her transcripts and why hasn't she released them? Why hasn't she released her Wall Street transcripts if there's nothing in them that would hurt her? And this, in my opinion, this was the worst performance from Clinton because she had no good response. Her response was basically she wants the Republicans to release their speeches, but we're talking about a Democratic nomination here, and Dana Bash made that point. Impressively, a CNN host made that point, and Hillary just did not have a response. And do you know why there's no response to this question? Because we all know there is stuff in those speeches that she doesn't want us to hear. It's obvious. She obviously, when you take that much money, $225,000 for a speech, it was more than one speech. When you take that kind of money for a speech to Wall Street, do you really think she's going to be lambasting Wall Street, talking about how they need to be reformed, how they need to be broken up? No, you're not going to be called back 2 more times to talk to Wall Street if they didn't like you the first time.